Captain Hayes thinks she belongs here with us. Let's find out if she has what it takes to survive what real operators face every single day. Colonel Victor Lang delivers this pronouncement with the casual confidence of someone who has never faced consequences for crossing lines. He stands at the edge of the outdoor combatives mat at Naval Special Warfare Training Compound in Coronado, California, morning sun cutting harsh angles through the overhead netting. 30 SEAL candidates stand at attention before him, arranged in precise rows, their faces ranging from eager to uncertain to quietly horrified at what they suspect is coming next. Lang is 52 years old, barrel-chested, with the weathered face of a man who spent decades in uniform but somehow missed the parts about honor and integrity. His voice carries authority earned through rank rather than respect. And right now, that voice is weaponizing protocol into something that smells like revenge disguised as training. Around him, 3 junior instructors stand at parade rest, exchanging glances that suggest this is not the first time they have witnessed Lang turn evaluation into punishment. On the viewing deck, 20 feet above the mat, clipboards rest on the metal railing, evaluation sheets waiting to be filled with observations and scores. The deck is empty at 10:30 a.m., though it will not remain empty for long. A scheduling board visible through the admin building window shows VIP inspection, 1,400 hours marked in red. 4 colonels arriving to evaluate facility operations. Lang knows this. Lang planned around this. Whatever he intends to accomplish needs to happen before anyone with enough rank to stop him arrives to witness it. At the center of the mat stands Captain Emma Hayes, 38 years old, 5'7", lean muscle wrapped in standard issue training uniform that bears the insignia of an officer but none of the unit patches or qualification badges that tell the real story. Her dark hair is pulled back in a regulation bun with no loose strands, no distractions, no excuses. She does not look at Lang when he speaks. Her eyes focus on a point in the middle distance, the 1,000-yard stare of someone who has seen things that training scenarios cannot replicate. Lang takes 3 deliberate steps onto the mat, boots making sharp sounds against rubberized surface designed to absorb impact. Hayes has been with this program for 6 weeks now. 6 weeks of excuses about injuries. 6 weeks of barely meeting minimum qualification standards. 6 weeks of proving that some people are here because of diversity requirements rather than actual capability. He pauses, letting poison settle into every ear within range. Today, we address that disconnect between paperwork and performance. Today, we run a real resilience assessment. Emma shifts her weight slightly, 50-50 distribution between both feet, hands loose at her sides. Not clenched, not rigid, just ready. A few candidates shuffle uncomfortably, recognizing that whatever is about to happen exists in the gray space between legitimate training and something else entirely. But none speak up because questioning senior officers during active instruction is the fastest way to end a military career before it truly begins. Attack formation, Lang announces, tone casual as ordering coffee. I need 8 volunteers to help Captain Hayes understand what sustained pressure feels like in combat environments. 8 men step forward. Some hesitate for half a breath before moving, duty wrestling with conscience. Others stride forward eagerly, seeing opportunity to prove themselves in front of command. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, 29 years old with linebacker shoulders and the kind of physical presence that has intimidated people his entire life, cracks his knuckles as he moves into position. Lieutenant Brad Connors, 31, grins like this is entertainment rather than evaluation. Lieutenant Mike Chen, 28, looks vaguely uncomfortable but not uncomfortable enough to withdraw. Petty Officer Leo Grant, 26, adjusts his stance and scans Emma for weaknesses the way predators assess prey. They form a loose circle around her, spacing themselves 6 feet apart, cutting off angles of escape. The geometry of the formation is tactically sound for overwhelming a single target. It is also completely outside any legitimate training protocol for resilience assessment. Standard rules apply, Lang says, stepping back off the mat. No strikes to throat or groin. Everything else is fair game. Begin when ready. Morrison moves first, throwing a straight right hand toward Emma's head with enough force to drop most people if it connects. Emma slips left, minimal movement, no wasted energy. The fist passes 3 inches from her temple, close enough that she feels displacement of air. Before Morrison can reset his stance, Connors closes from behind, reaching for her shoulder to establish control. Emma drops her center of gravity 6 inches, rolls her shoulder forward, and his grip finds only air and empty space. Chen commits to a low tackle, driving forward with legs that have carried him through obstacle courses and ruck marches and every other test the Navy can design. Emma pivots at the hips, redirects his momentum with a forearm across his upper back, and he stumbles past her into Morrison, who is still recovering from the missed punch. For 12 seconds, Emma moves like water flowing around rocks, reading attacks before they fully form, deflecting rather than blocking, conserving energy while 8 men burn theirs trying to land something solid. Then Grant changes the equation. He does not telegraph. He does not posture or position. He simply explodes forward, wraps both arms around Emma's waist at full sprint, and drives with the kind of commitment that leaves no backup plan if it fails. Emma's feet leave the mat for a heartbeat before gravity reasserts control, and she hits the ground shoulder first. Air forced from her lungs in a sharp exhale that carries across the entire training area. The impact echoes in the space between sound and silence. 30 candidates watch without speaking as Emma lies face down, one cheek pressed against the mat, chest rising and falling in controlled rhythm that seems impossible given the violence of the takedown. 4 seconds of breathing, 4 seconds of holding, 4 seconds of exhaling. Combat breathing, learned in environments where panic equals death and control equals survival. Morrison steps closer, towering over her prone form. "Stay down, ma'am. You made your point." Emma does not respond with words. She pushes herself up onto hands and knees, then rises to standing in one fluid motion with no hesitation, no visible pain despite the redness blooming across her jaw where Grant's elbow caught her during the takedown. Blood seeps from the corner of her mouth, thin trickle that she does not bother wiping away. "Again," Lang calls from the sideline. Not a question. A command delivered with the expectation of absolute obedience. The second exchange happens faster. Morrison throws a hook. Emma ducks under, but Connors is already there, grabbing her wrist. She rotates into the grip rather than away from it, using his own hold as leverage to twist his forearm into an angle that hyperextends the elbow joint through mechanical advantage rather than strength. He releases immediately with a curse that gets swallowed by the sound of Chen sweeping her legs. She goes down hard on her left side this time, hip bones striking mat with a sound that makes several candidates wince despite their training to maintain composure. 4, 4, 4. She breathes through it, resetting her nervous system, refusing to let adrenaline flood her decision-making and turn technique into panic. When she stands this time, her movements are slower by half a second, fatigue beginning to accumulate in muscles that have been under tension for 3 straight minutes with no rest interval. Captain Hayes is receiving an education today, Lang projects to the viewing deck even though no one is there yet to hear him. Learning that quotas in politics do not make warriors. Pain makes warriors. Failure makes warriors. Knowing when to quit makes warriors. Emma centers herself, hands loose because clenching fists requires energy she needs to conserve, breathing steady despite circumstances. The circle tightens. 8 men no longer holding back, no longer treating this as controlled drill. Grant nods to Morrison. They move in tandem with coordination that speaks to hours spent training together. High-low attack. Morrison goes for her head, Grant for her legs. Emma sees it forming, knows she cannot defend both angles simultaneously with degraded physical capacity. She chooses. Drops low, takes Morrison's knee to the ribs instead of his fist to the face, absorbs the blow, uses the momentum to roll away from Grant's grapple. But when she comes up, Connors is waiting. His palm strikes her sternum with enough force to send her stumbling backward into Chen, who shoves her forward into Leo Grant's waiting arms. Grant locks both hands behind Emma's neck, pulling her head down into a clinch position that should give him complete control. Emma reacts on pure instinct, technique ingrained through thousands of repetitions until it bypasses conscious thought entirely. Her right hand shoots up, finds Grant's wrist, executes a joint lock so precise it requires zero strength and total understanding of human anatomy. Small circle rotation, isolation of the thumb. Pressure applied to the joint in a direction evolution never intended it to bend. Grant's eyes widen as his own skeleton betrays him, forcing him to release or accept serious injury. He lets go, stumbling back, shaking out his hand. "Lucky break," Morrison mutters, loud enough to carry. Emma does not respond. She adjusts her stance, weight distributed 50-50, ready for the next exchange. But the next exchange does not come as another attack. It comes as an object tumbling from her cargo pocket, dislodged during the scramble. A challenge coin, 3 inches in diameter, gold with black enamel detailing, hits the mat with a metallic sound that somehow cuts through ambient noise of boots and breathing. Lang bends down with theatrical slowness, picks up the coin, examines it like a jeweler appraising a fake diamond. "SEAL Team Challenge coin," he announces, holding it up for anyone watching to see. "Very interesting, Captain. Where did you purchase this particular souvenir? The Navy Exchange gift shop, perhaps? Some online marketplace for military memorabilia collectors?" He flips it once, catches it, then drops it onto the mat and presses his boot down, grinding it into the rubber with his heel. Cheap trinket for a cheap career built on political correctness rather than actual achievement. Emma's expression does not change. She looks at the coin trapped under Lang's boot, then back at Lang's face, and maintains silence that communicates more than any verbal protest could achieve. At the edge of the mat, almost invisible in his stillness, stands Senior Chief Marcus Webb. 55 years old, 27 years in the Navy, face carved from salt water, and experience that cannot be faked or purchased. He has been an instructor at this compound for 8 years, has trained hundreds of candidates, has witnessed every variation of success and failure the human spirit can produce. Right now, he watches Emma Hayes with the focused intensity of someone solving a puzzle he did not know existed 30 seconds ago. Combat breathing, 4-count cadence. That is not something taught in basic officer training courses or leadership schools. That is what operators use in active threat environments to override the body's natural panic response and maintain cognitive function when bullets are flying and friends are dying. Webb has used it himself in Fallujah and Kandahar and places whose names remain classified decades later. And he just watched Captain Emma Hayes use it instinctively, automatically, the way someone breathes without thinking after years of conditioning made it more reflex than technique. Then there was the joint lock on Grant, small circle motion, wrist isolation, pressure applied to the ulnar side of the forearm. That is SEAL close quarters combat doctrine, not standard military combatives taught across branches. Webb has instructed that exact technique in advanced courses reserved exclusively for team guys who need it for direct action missions. Hayes executed it with textbook precision while under stress with multiple hostiles in her peripheral vision while recovering from impacts that would leave most people disoriented and compromised. Webb glances up at the viewing deck. Empty still, but not for much longer. The scheduling board showed 1,400 hours for VIP inspection. 4 colonels, high-level brass doing facility evaluation. They are not supposed to arrive for another 3.5 hours, but Webb has been in the military long enough to know that important people often show up early to see what happens when no one expects observation. He makes a decision, steps forward with measured confidence. "Sir, we have exceeded standard drill protocol duration and intensity. Request permission to pause for safety evaluation and medical check." Lang does not even look at him. "Request denied, Chief." Captain Hayes volunteered for this resilience assessment. She retains the authority to call it off anytime she chooses. He shifts attention back to Emma. "Is that not correct, Captain? Just say the word. Admit you cannot handle it, and this ends immediately." Emma wipes blood from her mouth with the back of her hand, leaving a red smear across pale skin. She does not look at Lang. She looks at Morrison, Connors, Chen, Grant, and the 4 others who have been waiting for their opportunity. Then she assumes a ready stance with hands raised in guard position and says in a voice that carries no emotion and all the resolve in the world, "Continue." If you believe silence is sometimes stronger than words, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to see how she turns this around, and remember the thanks button to support stories about warriors who fight quietly. The drill resumes with different energy. Where before there was hesitation born from uncertainty about protocol, now there is commitment to orders received from superior officer regardless of personal feelings about those orders. Morrison comes in fast, commits fully to a double-leg takedown with proper technique and explosive power. Emma sprawls, shooting hips back and distributing weight. She almost gets the counter, almost reverses position, but Connors grabs her ankle mid-motion and the entire structure collapses. She hits the mat shoulder first, then head, impact ringing through her skull despite her attempt to tuck chin to chest. 4. 4. 4. She breathes, resetting, climbing back to her feet with movements that have started to lose the fluid grace they possessed 10 minutes ago. Her left shoulder is stiffening, range of motion decreasing with each repetition of trauma. Chen exploits it immediately, faking high attack, then going low, sweeping her legs from the restricted side. She lands on her back this time, wind completely knocked out for 2 full seconds, where breathing technique does not help because there is no air to regulate. Lang walks the perimeter of the mat, performing for an audience that does not exist yet, but will soon. You see, gentlemen, this demonstrates what happens when we lower standards to accommodate political pressures. We get officers who look impressive on paper but cannot function in field conditions. Captain Hayes has excellent credentials if you believe the official record. Combat deployment citations, leadership awards, all very impressive, very bureaucratic, very suspicious. Emma rolls to her side, then pushes up to hands and knees with arms that shake from accumulated strain. Blood drips from her mouth onto the mat, small dark circles forming on gray rubber. She rises again, slower this time, favoring the left side, breathing still steady but shallower now as oxygen debt compounds. Morrison moves in for another exchange, but Webb steps between them with body language that brooks no compromise. "Sir," Webb says, addressing Lang directly while maintaining military courtesy, "I am formally requesting a safety halt. Captain Hayes has sustained multiple impacts to the head and torso. Continuing without medical evaluation risks serious injury that could result in permanent damage." "Your objection is noted and overruled, Chief," Lang responds without missing a beat. Captain Hayes has not tapped out. The drill continues until she verbally submits or physically cannot stand. Those are the stated parameters of a resilience test. You know that. Webb locks eyes with Emma for 3 seconds. In that brief exchange, something passes between them. Recognition, maybe. Or understanding. Emma gives the smallest shake of her head. Not yet. Not like this. Webb steps back with jaw tight and hands clenched at his sides, choosing to trust her judgment while hating every second of it. The pattern repeats with mechanical inevitability. Emma defends, gets taken down, breathes, stands, defends, gets taken down, breathes, stands. Each cycle takes longer. Each impact accumulates damage that cannot be ignored. After the 7th takedown, she stays on her knees for 6 seconds before rising, body requiring extra time to respond to commands from a brain that is starting to experience the cognitive effects of repeated head trauma. After the 8th takedown, she sways slightly when she reaches standing position, equilibrium compromised by concussion that has not been formally diagnosed but is obvious to anyone with medical training. Lang continues his monologue to the empty viewing deck. This is the reality of special operations, not diversity, not inclusion, capability under extreme duress, the ability to function when everything hurts and your body is screaming at you to quit. Captain Hayes is learning this lesson the hard way because someone, somewhere decided she deserved a participation trophy instead of honest evaluation. Emma does not respond to words anymore. She exists in a space where language is irrelevant and only action matters. When Morrison comes in for the 9th exchange, she does something different. Instead of defending, she attacks. Steps into his space, drives her forearm up under his chin, disrupts his base before he can establish position. It catches him sufficiently off guard that he stumbles, but before she can capitalize, Grant wraps her from behind in a bear hug that pins both arms to her sides with strength she cannot overcome through technique alone. She cannot break it. Grant has 40 pounds on her and superior leverage. He lifts her off her feet, walks her 3 steps backward, then releases and shoves with force that would be excessive in any legitimate training context. Emma staggers, tries to regain balance, but Chen is already there with a leg sweep timed perfectly to her compromised posture. She goes down face first this time, no time to turn, no time to break the fall with proper technique. Her forehead hits the mat with a sound that makes everyone on the viewing deck flinch, except there is still no one on the viewing deck to flinch at the sound. 4 seconds pass. 8 seconds, 12 seconds. Emma does not move. She lies flat, face down, arms at her sides, chest rising and falling in that same measured rhythm, but otherwise completely still. Webb takes 2 steps onto the mat. Lang holds up one hand, stopping him with a gesture. "Let's see if she has anything left," Lang says quietly, almost gently, the way someone might speak at a funeral for a person they never liked but are obligated to acknowledge. 16 seconds, 20. Emma's fingers twitch. Her left hand presses flat against the mat. She pushes, trying to lift her torso, but the muscles do not respond with the coordination needed. She gets 3 inches of elevation before collapsing back down, face hitting rubber again with a smaller but no less concerning impact. "Captain Hayes, do you quit?" Lang asks with volume sufficient for official record. A simple yes ends this immediately. Emma does not answer verbally. She pushes again, gets to hands and knees, sways there like a building during earthquake. Blood drips from her nose now, mixing with blood from her mouth, forming a small pool beneath her face that spreads slowly across textured surface. Morrison steps forward with genuine concern, replacing earlier eagerness. "Ma'am, that is enough. You proved your point. You do not need to continue." Emma lifts her head, looks at Morrison through eyes that are starting to swell, and says two words with complete conviction: "I do." She forces herself to standing using pure will where physical strength has failed, moving like someone climbing a mountain with broken bones. Every part of her is screaming for rest, for cessation, for the relief that surrender would bring. But she stands, assumes ready position with shaking hands and uneven weight distribution and the kind of determination that transcends physical capacity. Lang smiles. It is not a kind smile. "Very well, Captain, as you wish." Before the next exchange can begin, a voice cuts through from somewhere above. Colonel Lang, not loud but absolute in its authority. Colonel James Doyle stands at the viewing deck railing, hands on the metal bar, looking down at the mat with an expression somewhere between disbelief and controlled rage. Beside him stand three other colonels, all in uniform, all watching with the kind of attention that precedes career-ending consequences. Lang freezes for half a second, training and instinct warring with surprise. He recovers quickly. "Colonel Doyle, you are early for your inspection. We are not scheduled until 1400 hours. "I can see that," Doyle says, voice flat and cold as January ocean water. "Chief Webb, how long has this drill been running without rest intervals?" Webb snaps to attention reflexively. 22 minutes, sir. "And how many personnel are engaged against Captain Hayes?" 8, sir. "Is this standard protocol for resilience assessment in SEAL training?" Silence stretches for 3 full seconds. Webb glances at Lang, then back to Doyle. "No, sir. Standard protocol is one-on-one engagement, 3-minute rounds, with mandatory medical evaluation between rounds and immediate cessation if the evaluator observes signs of serious injury." Doyle nods slowly, processing information with the methodical precision of someone building an official case that will survive scrutiny. "I see. Carry on, Colonel Lang. But be aware that we are documenting this session for command review." Lang's jaw tightens visibly, muscles working beneath skin. He nods once. "Understood, sir." He turns back to the mat where Emma is still standing, still breathing 444, still refusing to fall despite every logical reason to stop. "Captain Hayes, you have proven your resilience beyond any reasonable standard. We can conclude here." "No," Emma says. Not defiant, not angry, just factual, stating observable reality. "You said this continues until I tap out or cannot stand. I am still standing." The challenge hangs in the air like humidity before a thunderstorm. Morrison, Connors, Chen, Grant, and the others exchange uncertain looks. They signed up to prove themselves as warriors, not to be part of whatever this situation has become. Lang stares at Emma, calculating odds and outcomes and career ramifications, while 4 colonels watch from above with the patience of people who have seen enough combat to recognize it in all its forms, including this. "Final round," Lang says after weighing options and choosing the path that feels like commitment but is actually desperation. "All 8. Let's conclude this properly." The circle closes for the last time. 8 men, orders from a superior officer, protocol that has already been shattered beyond any hope of legitimate justification. Morrison comes in first, but slower than before, telegraphing his intent, giving Emma room to react and defend herself. She tries. Her body simply cannot execute anymore. Her left leg buckles mid-block, technique failing where will remains strong. She goes to one knee. Connors reaches to help her up. Emma slaps his hand away, not from pride but from an instinct that says accepting help in the middle of a fight equals accepting defeat. She forces herself back to standing using the mat for leverage, one hand pressed flat, pushing down, driving up through legs that shake like fault lines before an earthquake. Chen moves in with technique so gentle it barely qualifies as contact. Emma still goes down, not because of force applied, but because her equilibrium has been destroyed by 22 minutes of repeated impacts to her head. She lands on her side, rolls to her back, stares up at the netting and the sky beyond it, and the viewing deck where 4 colonels are now moving toward the stairs that lead down to mat level. Lang crouches beside her. "You gave everything, Captain. No one can say you did not try your absolute hardest. But trying is not the same as succeeding. This is over now." Emma turns her head to look at him, blood on her face, swelling, closing her left eye halfway, breathing that remains somehow steady despite everything that should have broken it. "I am still conscious. I am still able to stand." She proves the second part by rolling to her side, getting to hands and knees, then pushing up to vertical one more time. It takes 8 seconds and looks like it costs her everything, but she does it. "Exactly right," Lang mutters, standing. He looks at the 8 candidates. "Formation again. This is the final pass. Make it count this time." Morrison shakes his head slowly. "Sir, with all due respect, I did not ask you to think, Lieutenant. I gave you an order. Get in formation now." Reluctantly, motivated by instinct to obey, that has been drilled into them since basic training, the 8 men form the circle again. Emma stands at the center, hands at her sides because lifting them into guard position requires energy reserves that have been depleted beyond recovery. She looks at each man in turn, memorizing faces and names, and this moment when following orders conflicted directly with doing what is morally correct. Grant steps forward first. He does not attack. He simply moves into range, close enough that Emma would need to react. She lifts her hands, attempting defense, but the coordination is gone. Her left hand moves half a second behind her right, limbs operating on separate timelines. Grant reaches out, not to strike but to grab her wrist in a hold that should be simple to escape, and when he does, Emma surprises everyone including herself. She defends properly, not with strength that she no longer possesses, not with speed that abandoned her 6 takedowns ago. She defends with technique so pure it bypasses the need for any physical attributes whatsoever. Grant grabs her wrist. Emma rotates into the grip with small circle motion, isolates his thumb, applies pressure to the joint in a direction human anatomy was never designed to accommodate. Grant's grip releases involuntarily as mechanical advantage defeats muscular power, and he stumbles back holding his hand. For 3 seconds, everyone on the mat freezes. That was not lucky. That was not desperation creating success through random chance. That was precision technique executed by someone who has performed it thousands of times until it became more instinct than conscious thought. Webb sees it from the sideline where he stands with fists clenched. Doyle sees it from the stairs he is descending with 3 other colonels. Morrison sees it from 2 feet away where he stands ready to continue the final exchange. And Emma, standing in the center of the circle with blood on her face and technique in her bones, sees their recognition and knows the facade is beginning to develop cracks. "Again," Lang orders, voice harder now, pressure increasing. "Do not let her counter this time. Commit fully." Morrison moves in faster, wraps both arms around Emma's torso from the front, pins her arms, lifts her off the ground in a hold that should be completely inescapable. She cannot break it through strength because she has none left, so she does not try. Instead, she drops her weight, becomes dead weight in his grip, forces him to support her full mass. His lower back takes the load. He grunts, adjusting position, trying to maintain the hold while his spine protests. Emma brings her knee up between their bodies, not to strike but to create space, then rotates her shoulders in opposite directions, exploiting the brief gap created. Morrison's grip loosens just enough. Emma extracts her right arm, controls his left wrist with proper grip, executes a standing arm drag that uses his own momentum to spin him past her. He releases completely, stumbling 3 steps before catching his balance with better footwork than the situation deserves. When he turns back, something different shows in his expression. Not anger, recognition. He has felt that technique before, in advanced hand-to-hand courses taught by SEAL instructors who learned it from people who used it in live combat against enemies who did not follow training rules. "Holy cow," Morrison whispers quietly enough that only Emma hears the words. Connors comes in next without hesitation, shoots for a double-leg takedown with explosive power that demonstrates excellent fundamentals. Emma sprawls, hips back, hands on his head, driving his face toward the mat. Her leverage is correct, weight distribution perfect, but her legs do not have the strength to maintain the position against his power. Connors drives through, completes the takedown, puts Emma on the ground. But as they land, Emma's arm snakes around his neck, finds the crook of his elbow, locks in a guillotine choke with positioning so precise it cuts off blood flow to his brain in 2 seconds. Connors taps frantically on her shoulder with the universal signal of submission. Emma releases immediately, muscle memory respecting the tap even in her degraded state. Connors rolls off, sits on the mat gasping, one hand on his throat. He looks at her with wide eyes, the kind of look someone gives a puzzle they just realized is exponentially more complex than initial assessment suggested. Chen hesitates at the edge of the circle, looking at Lang, then at Emma, then at the 4 colonels who have reached mat level and are walking toward them. "Sir, I think we need to stop. Something is not right here." "Nothing is wrong except that you are not following orders," Lang snaps, desperation beginning to show through the authoritative facade. "Engage now." Chen moves in reluctantly, commits to a clinch attempt, tries to control Emma's head in a position that should allow him to dictate the entire exchange. She counters with an overhook, swims her arm over his, establishes dominant position, then executes a hip throw that would work perfectly if her legs had not finally given out completely. Instead of throwing Chen, she collapses with him, both landing in a tangle of limbs. But even as they fall, Emma maintains wrist control, ends up in a position where if she had any strength remaining, she would have a fight-ending submission locked in. Chen rolls away as soon as they separate, breathing hard, eyes wide. "That was judo. Where did you learn judo technique like that?" Emma does not answer. She cannot. She is on her hands and knees, head hanging down, blood dripping onto the mat, breathing that has finally started to become ragged and uncontrolled. 4. 4. 4. She tries to reset the pattern, but the technique is failing her now. Oxygen debt too massive to repay with controlled breathing alone. What do you think happens when the truth comes out? Drop your prediction in the comments and hit that thanks button if you want to support stories about warriors who endure silently. Grant moves in, not attacking, just offering a hand to help her up. "Ma'am, please, you have proven more than enough." Emma looks at the offered hand. Then she looks past it to where Colonel Doyle has reached the mat edge and stands watching with 3 other colonels flanking him like an honor guard. She looks at Webb, who stands with fists clenched so tight his knuckles have gone white and his hands are shaking. She looks at Lang, who watches the approaching colonels with an expression that suggests he is recalculating his entire strategy for the next 5 years. And then Emma Hayes makes a choice. She does not take Grant's hand. She pushes herself to standing one final time, using only her own power, her own will, her own absolute refusal to let this end with her accepting help she has not earned. It takes 12 seconds. Her legs shake violently, her vision blurs and doubles, but she stands. "Formation," Lang says, but his voice has lost all the earlier confidence. The 4 colonels are 5 feet away now, close enough to see every detail, close enough to hear every word, close enough to become official witnesses to whatever happens next. The 8 candidates hesitate as a group. Morrison shakes his head slightly, a gesture so small it could be missed if you were not watching for it. Connors backs up half a step. Chen openly refuses. "No, sir, I am not doing this anymore. Not like this." "You are disobeying a direct order, Lieutenant," Lang says, each word precise and sharp as broken glass. "Then write me up, sir. Court-martial me if you want, because I am not attacking her again." Before Lang can formulate response, Grant says quietly but clearly, "Me neither, sir." Then Morrison adds his voice. "Same here." Then all 8 of them, standing down in unison, choosing conscience over command, morality over obedience, right over easy. Lang's face darkens, blood vessels visible beneath skin as blood pressure spikes. We are all what, Colonel?" Doyle's voice cuts through with the precision of a scalpel. He stands at the mat edge now, 3 colonels beside him, looking at Lang with the kind of expression that precedes the end of careers. "Are you about to discipline 8 candidates for refusing to participate in what clearly violates multiple training safety protocols and potentially crosses into criminal assault?" Lang straightens reflexively, adopts formal military posture. "Sir, this was a standard resilience drill. Captain Hayes volunteered to test her capacity under sustained multi-opponent pressure." "Did she?" Doyle says, and it is not phrased as a question. He looks at Emma, who stands through what can only be described as an act of supernatural will given her physical state. "Captain Hayes, did you volunteer for a drill involving 8 simultaneous opponents for 22 consecutive minutes without safety breaks, medical evaluation, or adherence to any recognized training protocol?" Emma opens her mouth to answer, to explain, to maintain operational cover even now. But before words can form, her body makes the decision for her. Her legs give out completely, not from any external force, but from the simple biological reality that muscle tissue can only operate under extreme stress for so long before systems shut down to prevent permanent damage. She drops to one knee, catches herself with both hands on the mat, and stays there, unable to rise, breathing hard and ragged, blood dripping from her face to form spreading pools on gray rubber. Webb moves immediately, crossing the distance in 3 long strides. He drops to one knee beside her, not touching but present. "Ma'am, I need you to stay still. Medical is on the way." Emma nods once, a tiny movement that costs more than it should. Her vision narrows to a tunnel. The edges of the world go gray, then darker. She can hear voices, but they sound distant, filtered through layers of cotton and water. Someone is giving orders. Someone else is arguing. Multiple footsteps approach rapidly, then everything fades to black. Not suddenly, but gradually, like a light dimming to nothing. Emma wakes to fluorescent lights and the antiseptic smell of medical facilities. The world comes back in fragments. White ceiling tiles, the steady beep of a heart monitor. Voices speaking in low tones just beyond her field of vision. Her body reports damage in waves, ribs screaming with each breath. Head pounding with the distinctive rhythm of concussion. Left shoulder stiff and hot with inflammation. She tries to sit up. A hand on her shoulder stops her, gentle but firm. "Easy, ma'am. You need to stay still." The voice belongs to a Navy corpsman, young, maybe 25, with the kind of competent calm that comes from treating injuries in environments where panic spreads like fire. "You have been unconscious for 8 minutes. Possible concussion, definitely some cracked ribs, extensive bruising. We are waiting for the doctor to clear you for transport to proper medical imaging." Emma processes this information while her brain slowly comes back online. 8 minutes. She collapsed on the mat. The 4 colonels were there. Lang was there. The mission is still active, still requiring her to maintain operational security until the right moment presents itself. "Where is Colonel Lang?" she asks, voice hoarse. "Outside with the colonels, ma'am. There is some kind of heated discussion happening." The corpsman adjusts an ice pack on her face. "Between you and me, it does not sound like it is going well for him." Before Emma can respond, the door opens. Not the doctor, not Lang. Colonel Samuel Albright enters, tablet in hand, expression carefully neutral in the way senior officers learn when they are about to deliver information that changes everything. Behind him, the sound of raised voices filters through from the hallway. "Captain Hayes," Albright says formally, "how are you feeling?" "Functional, sir." "That is not what I asked, but it tells me what I need to know about your mindset." He glances at the corpsman. "Give us the room, please. What we are about to discuss is classified." The corpsman nods, exits, closes the door behind him with a soft click that somehow sounds ominous. Albright pulls a chair close to the examination table, sits, and looks at Emma with eyes that have seen through too many lies to be fooled by one more. "The combat breathing gave you away first," he says quietly. "Then the joint locks. Then the way you moved even when you were barely conscious. That is not standard officer training. That is operator-level skill, which means either you went through BUDS and somehow kept it off your official record, or something else is happening here that I need to understand before Colonel Doyle decides how to proceed with Colonel Lang." Emma meets his gaze, calculating risk versus reward, operational security versus tactical necessity. The mission was always going to reach this point. The question was timing. She makes the call. "I am working undercover for NCIS, sir. Everything I am about to tell you is classified, and I need your word it stays in this room until I authorize wider disclosure." Albright does not hesitate. "You have my word. My actual rank is Lieutenant Commander. My actual assignment is Naval Special Warfare. I have been at this facility for 6 weeks, documenting systematic corruption in the evaluation process. Colonel Lang has been falsifying records to eliminate female and minority candidates while accepting bribes to pass unqualified candidates with the right family connections." She pauses. "Today was supposed to be the final test. I needed him to escalate to the point where his actions could not be explained away as legitimate training." Albright absorbs this without visible reaction, which tells Emma he is either an excellent poker player or he suspected something close to this truth already. "Show me proof. Check my actual service record, serial number Sierra Tango 6214. That should require your security clearance to access." Albright opens his tablet, navigates through security protocols, enters her serial number, and waits while the system processes. When the file opens, his expression shifts from neutral to something approaching awe. He reads for 30 seconds without speaking, then looks up at Emma with completely different eyes. Medal of Honor, Navy Cross, 2 Silver Stars, 15 years in SEAL Team 6. He sets the tablet down carefully as if it might explode. You let him beat you. You documented every violation. You waited for the perfect moment to expose him. It is not a question. Yes, sir. Why not just reveal yourself from the start? Your rank and record would have shut him down immediately. Because then I would have stopped one corrupt officer at one facility. NCIS suspects this is a network spanning multiple installations. We needed to understand how deep it goes, who is protecting it, and what leverage they are using to keep it hidden. Emma shifts slightly, ribs protesting. I needed Lang to believe he had complete power over someone weaker. People reveal who they really are when they think there will be no consequences. Before Albright can respond, shouting erupts in the hallway outside. Loud enough to penetrate the door, Lang's voice, angry and defensive. Then Doyle's voice, cold and absolute. Then a third voice Emma does not recognize but carries the kind of authority that suggests very senior rank. The door crashes open, not violently but with the force of someone who is beyond caring about protocol. Colonel Lang stands in the doorway, face red, finger pointing at Emma. This is entrapment. She came here specifically to set me up. Her entire presence was a lie designed to make me look bad. Behind him, Colonel Doyle moves to intervene, but before he can, Lang crosses the room in 3 strides and grabs Emma's uniform collar, yanking her partially off the examination table. You do not get to destroy my career with your... Emma's body reacts before her conscious mind fully processes the threat, pure instinct from 15 years of close-quarters combat training. Her right arm shoots up in a sharp elbow strike to Lang's solar plexus, not hard enough to cause serious injury but sufficient to break his grip and disrupt his breathing. As he stumbles back, she rotates her torso and executes a textbook shoulder throw, using his own momentum and body weight against him. Lang crashes to the floor beside the examination table, the wind knocked out of him completely. The force of the movement tears Emma's uniform. The shoulder seam rips from collar to mid-bicep with a sound like tearing paper, fabric separating to expose her left shoulder and upper arm in a ragged line that reveals what has been hidden beneath standard-issue clothing for 6 weeks. A tattoo. Not small. Not discreet. Impossible to miss or misinterpret. The Trident. SEAL insignia rendered in black ink, 3 inches tall, positioned precisely on her shoulder, where it would be visible in dress uniform but hidden under tactical gear. Below it, 3 campaign ribbons in color. The first ribbon shows gold and red stripes for Afghanistan. The second shows blue and white for Iraq. The third shows black and silver for operations that remain classified. And beneath the ribbons, in small precise numbers, ST-6214, SEAL Team 6, Assault Team 2, unit designation that fewer than 200 people on the planet are authorized to carry. Running from the tattoo down toward her collarbone, a scar, not surgical, not clean. The jagged, twisted tissue pattern of an IED blast that caught her close enough to leave permanent marks but not close enough to kill. Shrapnel trajectory frozen in scar tissue, a map of violence survived. The room freezes. Lang, on the floor gasping for air, looks up and sees the tattoo. His face goes from red to pale gray in the space of 2 heartbeats. Albright, who knew her record but has never seen the physical proof, stares with the expression of someone whose theoretical understanding just became visceral reality. The corpsman, who came back in when he heard the commotion, stands in the doorway with his mouth open. And on the viewing deck that overlooks the medical bay through a glass window, Colonel James Doyle stands with 2 other colonels, all 3 of them frozen mid-conversation, as they look down and see Emma Hayes standing beside the examination table with her shoulder exposed and her true identity literally written on her skin. Doyle moves first. He is down the stairs and through the medical bay door in 6 seconds, moving with the kind of speed that suggests combat experience rather than just administrative desk time. Lang, stand down immediately. Lang does not move, cannot move. He stares at the tattoo the way someone might stare at a ghost, unable to process what his eyes are showing him because it contradicts everything he believed he understood about reality. Colonel David Grant enters behind Doyle, takes one look at Emma's exposed shoulder, and his entire posture changes. He stands straighter. His hand comes up in an instinctive salute before he consciously arrests the motion halfway. That is DevGru, he says quietly, using the official acronym for SEAL Team 6. That is the real thing. You cannot fake that ink. The unit does not allow it. Colonel Ryan Pierce follows Grant through the door, sees the tattoo, and his face goes through a rapid series of expressions before settling on something like vindication mixed with anger. Lieutenant Commander Emma Hayes, call sign Valkyrie. You trained half the West Coast teams in advanced CQB. He is not asking. He is confirming what he already suspected but could not prove without seeing physical evidence. The gas moment spreads outward from the medical bay like ripples on water. Through the glass window, the 8 candidates who participated in the drill stand watching, summoned by medical staff who thought they might need to provide statements. Morrison sees the tattoo from 15 feet away, processes the trident and serial number, and his face goes pale. Holy cow, that is Team 6. We were attacking Team 6. Connors leans against the wall like his legs might give out. I put her in a guillotine choke. I submitted someone from DevGru. Chen just shakes his head slowly, unable to form words that match the magnitude of his realization. Webb stands at the back of the group, and unlike the younger candidates, he does not look shocked. He looks satisfied, like someone who just had a hypothesis confirmed after 6 weeks of careful observation. I knew it, he says quietly. The breathing, the techniques, the way she took punishment that would have broken anyone else. She was not learning to be an operator. She already was one. Doyle crouches beside Lang, who remains on the floor struggling to breathe properly after the solar plexus strike. Colonel Lang, in front of multiple witnesses, you just committed assault on a decorated Navy SEAL with 15 years of combat experience who was conducting an authorized undercover investigation into corruption at this facility. I am placing you under immediate arrest pending court-martial. Lang finds his voice, though it comes out choked. She set me up. This whole thing was a setup. No, Emma says, speaking for the first time since the reveal. Her voice carries across the medical bay with perfect clarity despite her injuries. I gave you every opportunity to follow protocol, every opportunity to treat people fairly, every opportunity to be the officer you swore an oath to be. She steps closer to where Lang sits on the floor. You chose to violate protocol. You chose to falsify records. You chose to accept bribes. You chose to orchestrate systematic discrimination. I did not make you do any of those things. I just documented them when you did. Albright pulls up his tablet, navigates to a secure folder, and turns the screen toward Lang. These are the original evaluation records for 23 candidates who washed out of this program over the past 18 months. Every single one was female or minority. Every single one had performance scores that should have qualified them for advancement. He swipes to the next screen. These are the altered records you entered into the system. Different scores, different assessments, different outcomes. Pierce pulls a phone from his pocket, opens a video file, and holds it where Lang can see. This is security footage from your office 3 weeks ago. Watch carefully. The video shows Lang at his desk. A civilian man in expensive clothing sits across from him. Money changes hands. Documents are signed. The audio is clear enough to hear Lang say, "Your son will pass the evaluation. Just make sure the deposit clears by Friday." Lang's face goes from gray to a darker shade of defeat. That footage is inadmissible. You obtained it illegally. Actually, Grant says, pulling a document from his briefcase, we obtained it through a warrant issued by a military judge after NCIS presented preliminary evidence of corruption. Everything here is admissible in court-martial proceedings. Morrison steps forward from the group of 8 candidates, drawing everyone's attention. Sir, I need to make a statement. He is addressing Doyle, not Lang. Colonel Lang told us before the drill that attacking Captain Hayes was necessary to prove she did not belong in SEAL training because women need to learn their place. Those were his exact words. He specifically said, quote, women need to learn their place, and that place is not here, unquote. Connors nods. I will corroborate that statement, sir. He said it in front of all 8 of us. Chen adds his voice. He also told us not to hold back, that she needed to be taught a lesson about trying to compete in a man's world. I thought it was just motivational rhetoric at the time, but given everything else, it was clearly gender-based harassment. Grant, the 4th candidate, speaks last. He said if we did not make her quit, it would set a precedent that would ruin the teams by letting in people who did not belong. Looking back, every single thing he said was about keeping women and minorities out, not about legitimate standards. Doyle looks at the 8 young men who have just chosen to tell the truth despite knowing it might complicate their own careers. You all refused to continue the final exchange. That took moral courage in an environment where disobeying orders can end your career. That will be noted in your permanent records. If this story resonates with you, please share it so other warriors fighting quietly know they are not alone. And stay tuned for what happens next, because Emma's mission is just beginning. 2 military police officers arrive, summoned by Doyle before he even entered the medical bay. They help Lang to his feet, inform him of his rights in the flat, professional tone of people who have done this before, and escort him from the room. As he passes Emma, he stops for 1 second and says quietly, "Why did you let me hit you? Why not just reveal yourself from the start?" Emma meets his eyes without flinching. "Because I needed to give you every chance to be better than you were. And I needed documentation of exactly who you are when you think no one is watching. One corrupt officer is a problem. A corrupt officer with evidence of systematic abuse is a pattern that forces institutional change." Lang has no response to that. The MPs guide him out, and the door closes behind them with a finality that sounds like the end of a career built on 30 years of service and destroyed in 22 minutes. Doyle turns to Emma, and for the first time she sees something in his expression that looks like respect mixed with concern. "Commander Hayes, I need to understand the scope of this investigation. Is Lang an isolated case or part of something larger?" "Larger, sir. NCIS has evidence suggesting a network of officers at 5 different facilities engaging in similar corruption. Lang was the entry point because he was the most blatant, but the real targets are higher up the chain of command." She pauses, testing her ribs with a shallow breath. "I was sent here to gather evidence and identify the full network before anyone realized they were being investigated." Pierce nods slowly. "That is why you needed him to escalate. One bad drill could be explained away as judgment error. A pattern of falsified records, accepted bribes, and systematic discrimination documented over 6 weeks creates an unassailable case." "Exactly, sir." Albright looks at the 8 candidates still standing in the hallway beyond the glass. "What about them?" "They were ordered to attack a superior officer conducting an undercover operation." "They followed orders they believed were legitimate," Emma says firmly. "When they realized something was wrong, they stopped. That is exactly what we want from operators. Not blind obedience, but the judgment to recognize illegal orders and the courage to refuse them." She looks directly at Webb through the glass. "Chief Webb tried to stop it multiple times. He recognized something was wrong before anyone else and attempted to intervene despite knowing it could end his career. That is leadership." Doyle makes a decision. "Grant, Pierce, I need you to secure all of Lang's files, computer access, and office materials. Nothing leaves this facility without chain of custody documentation. Albright, contact NCIS and inform them we have concluded phase 1 of the investigation with full evidentiary support." He turns to Emma. "Commander, you need legitimate medical evaluation now. No more operational security requirements preventing proper treatment." The doctor finally arrives, having been held outside during the classified discussion. He examines Emma with professional efficiency, documents 3 cracked ribs, grade 2 concussion, multiple contusions, and recommends 72 hours of rest before any physical activity. Emma listens to his instructions with the patience of someone who knows she will not follow them, but appreciates the thoroughness. When the medical evaluation concludes and the doctor leaves, Doyle pulls a chair close to Emma's examination table. "NCIS briefed me 2 weeks ago that they had someone undercover here, but they did not tell me it was you. They said an officer was documenting potential corruption and to let it play out unless someone's life was in immediate danger." He pauses. "When I saw you on that mat today, I thought we had failed. I thought we let Lang kill someone because we were too slow to intervene." "I was never in lethal danger, sir. I have taken worse in actual combat. The difference is those injuries came from enemies trying to kill me. These came from people who were supposed to be on my side." Emma shifts on the table, finding a position where her ribs hurt slightly less. "That is why this matters so much. We can train people to fight enemies. We cannot function as a force if we are fighting each other." 3 days later, 500 personnel gather at the Coronado facility for an unscheduled ceremony. Word has spread through the SEAL community the way information always spreads among people who trust their lives to each other. The woman who was attacked during a training drill was not who anyone thought she was, and today the full truth will be made public. Admiral Jonathan Cross stands at a podium, dress uniform displaying enough ribbons and medals to tell a story of 3 decades in naval special warfare. Emma stands beside him in her own dress uniform, the injuries from 3 days ago still visible but fading. Her left eye shows yellow bruising. She moves carefully, ribs bound beneath the uniform. But she stands straight, hands at her sides, breathing steady. "Lieutenant Commander Emma Hayes," Admiral Cross says, voice carrying across the assembled crowd without amplification, "served in naval special warfare for 15 years with distinction that remained classified until today for operational security reasons." He opens a wooden box to reveal a medal suspended from blue ribbon with 13 white stars. The Medal of Honor. For actions in Helmand Province, Afghanistan on November 17, 2016, then Lieutenant Hayes held a defensive position under continuous fire for 8 hours while coordinating the evacuation of 12 wounded personnel and sustaining multiple injuries herself. Her actions saved lives and demonstrated courage far beyond the call of duty. He pins the medal to Emma's uniform. 500 people stand in absolute silence. Webb stands in the front row beside Morrison, Connors, Chen, and Grant. All 8 candidates who refused Lang's final order are present, watching the woman they attacked 3 days ago receive recognition for heroism that makes their training challenges seem insignificant. The ceremony continues. Navy Cross, 2 silver stars, Purple Heart with oak leaf clusters, Bronze Star with Valor device. Each decoration transforms understanding, reshaping Emma from the struggling captain who could not meet standards into the warrior who set those standards. Admiral Cross speaks again when the formal presentations conclude. Commander Hayes spent 6 weeks at this facility documenting systematic corruption that resulted in the unjust removal of 23 qualified candidates. Her investigation led to the arrest of Colonel Lang and will lead to further investigations at multiple facilities across naval special warfare. He pauses to let that information settle. Some of you witnessed or participated in events during her time here. If you stood with her when it mattered, you demonstrated the values we claim to uphold. If you stood against her, you now have the opportunity to understand why integrity matters more than blind obedience. Emma steps to the podium. "Strength is not loud," she says. "It is standing when no one believes you can. It is enduring abuse and documenting violations instead of seeking revenge. It is choosing the long path to justice over the short path to satisfaction." She looks at Webb, then at the 8 candidates. "I did not complete this mission alone. People chose courage when silence was easier. That choice matters. That is what being a warrior truly means. Not just physical capability, but moral courage." 500 personnel salute in unison. The sound of hands hitting uniform cloth creates a sharp crack that echoes across the facility. Emma returns the salute with precision earned through 15 years of service. After the ceremony, Admiral Cross walks with Emma toward the administrative building. "Your next assignment briefing is ready. Facility 4, where senior officers train for command positions. The stakes are considerably higher than what you faced here." "I understand, sir." Cross pulls a red folder from his briefcase. "We identified who is protecting the network. Flag officers, Pentagon staff, people with the power to bury investigations and silence whistleblowers. Going after them means challenging the institution itself at the highest levels." Emma opens the folder to photographs of senior officers whose names she recognizes from briefings and official ceremonies. These are not minor figures. These are people who shape policy and determine the future direction of the entire military. How long has this been happening? Years at minimum, possibly decades. Lang was not an anomaly. He was a symptom of a disease that goes much deeper. Cross stops walking and faces her directly. "Commander, you can walk away from this. You have done more than enough. No one would question that decision." Emma studies the faces of people who used authority to protect corruption and silence victims. She thinks about 23 sabotaged careers at just this one facility. She thinks about how many others at other facilities face the same treatment. She thinks about the candidates who will come after, who deserve a system that evaluates them fairly rather than filtering them through bias and prejudice. "When do I leave?" Emma asks. 2 weeks. That gives you time to heal and review the briefing materials." Cross hesitates. These people do not accept exposure quietly. They have resources and connections and every reason to make problems disappear. "Neither do I, sir." Cross nods, satisfied. He hands her a second folder marked with the highest security classification. "Operation Silent Anchor. Everything you need is here. Read it, memorize it, destroy it according to protocol." Emma takes the folder and walks toward her temporary quarters. Behind her, the training facility continues its daily operations, but something fundamental has shifted. Candidates train with renewed purpose. Instructors watch themselves more carefully. Quiet conversations happen about what integrity means in an institution that sometimes rewards the opposite. In her quarters, Emma opens the silent anchor folder. 5 facilities, 12 senior officers under suspicion. Evidence of conspiracy spanning years and involving Pentagon-level personnel. Her role: infiltrate as a mid-level officer, document violations, identify the full network before anyone realizes they are under investigation. The final page contains one photograph. A senior officer, 3 stars on his uniform, standing in front of the Pentagon. Caption reads, "Primary subject, suspected network coordinator, approach with extreme caution." Emma memorizes every detail, then methodically burns each page in the metal trash can designated for classified material destruction. Documents curl and blacken, transforming from evidence into ash, information transferred to memory where it cannot be stolen. When the last page burns, Emma sits on her bunk and allows herself one moment of something between doubt and anticipation. The mission ahead is larger than anything she has done. The opposition is more powerful. The stakes involve not just individual careers, but institutional integrity. And somewhere in that calculation, Emma Hayes smiles, not with joy, but with the grim satisfaction of someone who has found purpose in the hardest possible work. Outside her window, the California sun sets over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that will fade to darkness before morning comes. Emma watches the transition, breathes 444, and prepares for the next phase of a mission that started 6 weeks ago but will not finish until every corrupt officer faces consequences. Tomorrow, physical therapy begins to accelerate healing. In 2 weeks, she arrives at Facility 4, wearing a different rank and a different name, ready to do it all again. But tonight, she acknowledges the cost: pain in her ribs, headaches from concussion, exhaustion that goes deeper than physical fatigue. She has been doing this for 15 years, and every year takes something that cannot be recovered. Emma stands, moves to the mirror, looks at the reflection of someone who has earned every decoration and paid for every achievement. The bruises will fade, the ribs will heal, the mission will continue. Because that is what warriors do. They stand when others cannot. They endure when others break. They complete the mission regardless of cost. Somewhere in the Pentagon, a 3-star officer reviews reports that do not yet mention Emma Hayes by name but will soon. Somewhere in 5 other facilities, corrupt officers continue operating with the confidence of people who believe themselves beyond accountability. And somewhere between those 2 points, justice moves forward with patient, methodical certainty. The mission is not over. It is just beginning. And Emma Hayes, decorated warrior and undercover investigator, is exactly where she needs to be. Standing, breathing, ready. Justice is not loud, it is patient. And patience, applied correctly, changes everything.
Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to MVB Story for more.